Good afternoon, everybody. We might make a start. So for those that don't know me, my name is Michael Lee. I'm one of the group managers at Meat and Livestock Australia. We've got a couple of expressions of interest we're going to talk through this morning. So hopefully you're definitely ready and interest prepared for that. We've got the chat function running, so please use that as needed. But today if you just get that to move on, thanks. Thanks there, Will. Today we're going to have a look at two particular expressions of interest on the MLA website. One called value realisation, and so we'll touch on what some of the interested areas that we're looking at there, and we'll also talk about another expression of interest, our long-term producer adoption program that Will and Hilary will talk to. So as I said, welcome. Hopefully we'll step through this in the next sort of 45 minutes. At the start, we'll focus on the value realisation expression of interest before moving on to the producer adoption program. Thanks, Will. So just to set the scene, for those that haven't had a chance to look, in the 1st of July this year, we launched our 5-year strategic plan, and in the strategic plan, there was some reference to value-based marketing. Now, that term in itself is quite topical. Some believe we currently do that. Others believe that's something we want to aspire to. And so today is probably not about debating what does that term mean, but really invite interested parties to nominate as to what are the gaps that you see in your business, but also to provide some guidance to us here at Meat and Livestock Australia as to what role can we play and what are some innovation gaps and some capability areas that collectively as an industry, but also unique to your business, that we might be able to look at how can we create and capture new value and higher value. And in our strategic plan, we reference some of our bigger, bolder initiatives and how those ambitions sort of work towards some of our goals in terms of driving demand for red meat and also increasing the productivity across the supply chain. Thanks. Next slide, thanks. And so when you have a look at our strategic plan, the program itself called value realisation, and so one of the important things I wanted to call out, you'll hear from a couple of the team members today, is it's not a unique project that we're looking only at technology. We're looking at the business model innovation around how you create and capture value, but also some of those enabling technologies, and that could be examples like objective measurement, probes and cameras and ag tech, but also the business model behind how do we look at data, how do we use data to make better decision-making options that ultimately can lead to creating that new value and that higher value across the whole carcass, as well as capturing value up and down the supply chain. And in the graph that we'll see up on the screen there, what that looks like is we really do believe it's lots of different parts of the supply chain that can be active in this area, and hence the expression of interest that we're calling out is whether you're a brand owner, whether you're all the way through to retail or back on farm in a producer or feedlot sector, whether you're in academia and the consultants space, lots of different areas that we can work together to look at how can we create that extra value. And as I said at the start, whilst value-based marketing is quite a prevalent use in our strategic plan, we're really keen to understand what does that or what might that mean for your business. Next slide, thanks. And so just before we start, I probably wanted to sort of remind others that we do have quite a large program of activities that we're currently funding, and so happy to provide more detail of that sort of one-on-one or reach out to your MLA contacts there. But as you should see on the screen there, a lot of R&D in terms of technology. So we've got lots of initiatives underway, as I said, in objective measurement, probes and cameras on the live animal, in the carcass measurement side, even in the offal side, and we've got lots of work we're doing which may lead to new products. So we've done a lot of work around harvesting liver into a powder, into a capsule, through to a lot of the work that we do on farm across genetics and sustainability, and the sort of NB2 program and BreedLink, so the Sheep Links program and breed plan. So lots of traditional R&D activities and programs. We certainly are continuing in the 5-year strategic plan, but just wanted to, I suppose, again, take this opportunity today through this webinar to give a little bit of a flavour and exposure to when we're talking about value-based marketing and value realization. We're really keen for an expression of interest from those interested parties who as far as putting your hand up to find out more or contribute what you're thinking in terms of that space. It doesn't need to be a specific R&D project around sort of a tech discovery. As I said at the start, a lot of business model innovation and capability building we see as areas of investment and support for industry. Next slide, thanks. So just welcome to those that may have joined us since we started. What we're looking at is the expression of interest that's currently up on our tenders page, which we'll put that in the chat. I can see. Thanks, Hillary. There's also that QR code if you'd like to scan that, which will take you directly to the guidelines there. In particular, just wanted to call out that we have extended the expression of interest out to the 1st of October. So our plan is to obviously launch this today, take some further inquiries. Thank you to those that have already submitted some information. And as I said, some that looks like a proposal for some, others it's simply just putting your hand up and wanting a one-on-one conversation. Others have also expressed some interest around what might a whole of industry consultation look like. So have a read of that guidelines in more detail. What I'll do now is invite David Packer to come and have a chat about some of the areas, just to give it again a little bit more scope to what the expression of interest is looking towards. And again, please use the chat to refer to any questions you'd like to raise during this session. So I'll just introduce yourself now, David, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, as Michael said, look, the EOI is not a specific project call, although if you have ideas for projects or initiatives, we'd love to hear about them. Expression of interest could include things like wanting to collaborate with industry or be part of partnerships or other means of being part of this process. Importantly, it's really, we want to hear how you think MLA can help you. So how we can support projects or ideas or initiatives to help extract extra value. So it doesn't have to be extensive, but we really want to hear from those supply chains and producers and market stakeholders about how we can create and support greater value capture. Next slide, please, Will. So I've just got some areas of examples. So it's, and by all means, this isn't restrictive. It's just food for thought of some areas we may be interested in to help create additional value. Next slide, thanks, Will. So the first one is actually describing carcass value. So developing new or implementing existing measures or traits to better describe carcass value. So the two biggest predictors of carcass value at this point in time is actually yield and eating quality. That might not be the case in the future. And we're already seeing the evolution of other value drivers to define carcass quality. Michael's touched on some investments, particularly in the objective measurement space, looking at cut and carcass yields. So it could be the implementation of objective measures in supply chains to collect that data, but also utilise that data for improvement in on-plant processes, feeding that information back to the farm gate to make better decisions moving forward. Animal health, we've got an industry standard to collect disease and defect information on animals. Again, there's some investments in the spaces of objective measurement to help support human collection of that information. but it could be using that information, developing tools to get better insights, to make better decisions on animal health going forward. Further traits to describe eating quality. Whilst the MSA model's got 14 different traits that describe eating quality, we're not set in stone on those traits. So we're always open to new methods and traits that can better describe eating quality variation. And then the fifth quarter, Michael touched on this as well, but really trying to look for new value creation from all parts of the carcass, whether it be extracting collagen from hides, value adding to products. Michael touched on the liver product, and many other uses that we can generate value from the animals that we're harvesting. Next slide, thanks, Will. Supporting industry towards VBM. So I guess this is just part of what we're talking about in the value creation and realization space, but it's not limited to just value-based marketing. And noting that a number of supply chains that are really implementing the concept of value-based marketing, and it means something to each and every member, or potentially different to each and every person along the as part of the industry. But it's really about determining how we can capture additional value from our customers, and then using that to underpin brands and other ways to generate value for the red meat industry. So obviously we've had the MSA program from eating quality for a number of years now, but interest and could be flagged to help enable the sheep meat MSA model. So that's currently being implemented by a number of supply chains. How we can actually extract further value, yet to be commercialised, but an exciting space. Extracting values through sustainability credentials, raising claims, well-being. Customers are expressing interest in human nutrition and health, but we really want to hear from yourselves about how you think we can generate additional value. Use that to underpin our brands and extract that extra value from the customer and share that along the supply chains. And importantly, noting how MLA can help support that process for yourselves and industry. Next slide, please, Will. Advanced systems for segregation and efficiencies in supply chains. So it doesn't have to be limited to processing plants, but some examples could include improved data flow. That could be up and down the supply chain within the processing system, beyond the processing network. It could be data upload. It could be additional analytic tools to make better decisions moving forward. It could be improved sorting and classifications of animals or carcasses. And then ultimately we want to move to a space where we're predicting better carcass outcomes. And then underlying all these examples, if you've got initiatives where you think you can build the capability of personnel within your businesses to support projects or initiatives, please bring those ideas forward. We've got a robust innovation and capability program as part of this value realisation space. Next slide, please, Will. Live animal measures. We've been talking about this for a long time. Excitingly, we've got some projects underway to try and predict carcass outcomes, but much more investment required in that space. Ultimately, if we can predict carcass outcomes on live animals, we can better manage those animals to help meet brand specifications and customer specifications in the future. So that's obviously carcass trace, the health of that animal, verifying raising claims. But I guess this is really a big goal that we would like to progress forward with industry, supported by not only objective measurement, but obviously there's some investments in that space. We could look at genetic prediction of outcomes or other means as well. For example, we had a project recently finished with CSIRO where we used collected saliva from animals 4 weeks from slaughter, and that saliva had biomarkers to help predict high pH animals. So therefore, the farm business can better manage those animals prior to slaughter. So that's just an example, but obviously a very exciting space, and I'd love to love to really realise the value of those tools. And importantly, looking at ways of measuring and passing that information along the supply chain, including genetic information. Next slide, please, Will. I won't go too much into this because Will and Hilary will get into the depths of this. But I think if you're thinking about additional value capture for your supply chain or area of the industry you work in, it's important we bring everyone along for the journey. And a key part of that journey is producers. So helping producers implement practices to help better meet market specifications, which are current or future specifications. And the best model, and it underpins the MLA adoption model, is working in this long-term, sustained, supported learning model. So producers working together, for example, with a supply chain over a period of years to help implement those practices to improve on-farm and supply chain outcomes. And we're looking for long-term projects, so we actually see them and measure that improved outcome. But Will's going to talk a fair bit more in depth about that specific ROI. But this can be a part of the expressions of interest for the value capture ROI, so something to consider. Next slide, please, Will. And probably the other area that we'd come up with as an example is creating value to connect data from across the supply chain. So we've got many feedback platforms, whether they're aligned to brand owners and processors, or MLA have a number of offerings through my feedback on my MLA. It's probably going the next step, and how can we capture additional value from that information? There's a number of on-farm and feedlot businesses and somewhat doing this concept already. But there's more value we can capture by connecting that on-farm information, whether that's individual animal information, mob-based data, or on-farm or paddock data, or feedlot data, and connecting that with outcomes, so we can get some power in future decisions and predictions. So that's just some food for thought. By all means, that's not an extensive list, but hopefully that gives you some ideas that we're really looking for what you're thinking about in the value creation space, whether it be on farm through to the supply chain or in market. And we really want to hear about how you'd like to be involved and how MLA can assist you in extracting that value. So I'll pass it back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And I suppose the key point we want to really get across here is, really keen to hear from different parties, and that could ultimately include specific, R&D investment options that might pilot business models. Really keen to support the adoption of new systems, and particularly that space around data and use of data. Really keen to look at education, producer education, and up along to the processor side as well. But we're also keen to look at, is there a gap or is there a need to form, industry working groups or collaborations? And so, again, the expression of interest is really a call to action for those that want to be, for lack of a better word, the coalition of the willing. But we're also really open to doing things sort of one-on-one in a bespoke value chain sort of setting. From an MLA perspective, we're really anything that would ultimately look at a research and development or accelerated adoption initiative. We certainly would look to tap into the MLA donor company co-funding model that we offer there. So I don't see too many questions in the chat there, but certainly keeping adding those to the chat. Again, there's the QR code there if you'd like to scan that. That will take you directly to the tenders page and the expression of interest. As I said, we'll close on the 1st of October, and the plan is to, in the next 4 to 6 weeks after that, come back to those that have nominated. Maybe just might share some of the feedback or some of the questions we have been getting asked in the last couple of weeks, has been, which I thought might share with others, has been around what type is it limited to a processor or a producer? The answer is no. It's anyone up and down the supply chain. So it can be in the sale yards, it can be in the feedlot, it can be obviously on farm. It doesn't need to be a continued or integrated supply chain. We're having a look at some opportunities with those that also looking at toll manufacturing from a processor perspective. So really keen to sort of hear from all. We've also had a look at the innovation capability side. So what are the research gaps around designing a value chain and a business model design? So yeah, just wanted to, I suppose, acknowledge that for us, creating the value and capturing the value doesn't need to be limited to just the tech, as we've sort of said a couple of times here. It also doesn't need to link to a ultimate new product range or a marketing mix. But one of the things that we certainly wanted to call out that MLA won't be involved in is, pricing grids and those types of commercial decisions. That's obviously not our remit in that space. So there's some of the examples that has come through. I can see the note there. Certainly, it is a tight time frame on the 1st of October, but I'd just encourage you to have a look at the expression of interest. We're really asking effectively just to nominate your interest. So we're not expecting full project proposals in the next sort of week or so. It's effectively nominating your area of interest. The question there about universities, example UTS, certainly yes, you can nominate. It does probably add weight when if you're coming from a supporting institution such as university, that you are bringing a coalition of industry reps. So that would certainly be advantageous. But I'd still either way encourage you just to put your expression of interest in with the types of skill sets and competencies and thinking that you'd like to put forward. Dave, maybe before you finish up, any questions you've been receiving from industry since you've been around the grounds?
Michael, I think you've covered most of them. I think it's really it's not project specific. We're really just looking for even if you don't can't define the area of interest and value, but you want to be part of something potentially collaborative with industry, please just put your expression of interest forward, and we'll use that to help define the next steps and come back to you. So as Michael has said a number of times, it's really just trying to flag the coalition of the willing and how we can help support the industry in stepping forward.
All right. Thanks again for those that dialed in for the first expression of interest around value creation, value realisation. I'll pass over to Will, and perhaps Hilary might jump in as well. So this is a second expression of interest we'll talk to today, and that's regarding the long-term producer practice change. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Mick. As we go through, feel free the same to put some questions in the chat. I did see a couple more come through just at the end there. We can touch on those, or if either Mick or Dave wants to type anything in the chat directly to those. But I'll get into this part. So as Dave mentioned before, we're also as part of that the expression of interest, an additional one, we're more specifically looking at the producer practice change, looking at how do we support producers over a long term, set some of those key objectives, as well as continue to measure and report on that so we can actually identify that change and the impact over time. So the idea behind the long-term practice change is to develop and implement that change in a peer-to-peer learning environment. So we've found that has some of the most effective ways that producers can actually go and improve what they do on farm. And it's focused on supporting the producers to meet things such as breeding objectives, market specifications, whilst also optimizing the productivity and profitability. So that's sort of the key overall goal behind the long-term practice change expression of interest. It's to ensure that we can work directly with those producers on farm over time, But it's not just limited to like breeding objectives and market specs. So some of the areas we're sort of looking that we want to cover off in with that long-term practice change is, as part of that expression of interest, we're looking to see where the link to along the value chain is. So similar to what we touched on before around the processing sector, but also into whether it's a feedlot, whether it's coming in more directly around and it's animal health side of things and that sort of part. So where along that whole value chain can you create a link, but all centered around how do we work with those producers to improve and improve over time within that framework, with the core focus obviously that on-farm improved productivity and profitability. And so that doesn't necessarily mean just one key objective, one key area. That could be parts of things like nutrition on farm or feed-based management during like over the time and during the sort of seasonal variation that we can have. It can also be obviously looking into genetics and that sort of thing as well. So it's not limited to one or two areas. In a way, it's looking at where are the gaps of that information and where are those potential objectives we can focus on that may not be currently looked into that actually have an influence on productivity and profitability. And then, of course, because the customer is the one that puts the money in throughout the supply chain, we're going to work with the producers as well to actually help them better meet market specifications, better suit to that target market, whether that's the breeder and their target market, and also then how that links then all the way through to the other end of the supply chain, or whether that's within the middle of the supply chain, whether it's a trader, feedlotter, or something within that framework. And this is under the co-investment program with the MLA donor company, which would fit in under a 40% contribution from MLA. So to give you a quick look at what that is in terms of how it would be structured, this is kind of what we're chasing. So you'll see there that it's relatively open in regards to who can be involved. So we've said project partner, in this case a supply chain, or as an example like a processor supply chain, but we need that direct link to the industry service providers being involved, either actively running some of the workshops or the program, or are brought in on a regular basis to provide input to the producers. So as you can see there, then they link between, in this case, 3 different producer groups, all go back towards that project partner and have a link to that supply chain. So it's getting that key parts of the supply chain involved and supporting the producers to meet those objectives set as part of the project. So what does that look like from a potential scenario? So for example, we're looking to, you could have multiple project partners within that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just one, in this case, a processor. It could actually be the consultant is the driver of that project, but there's a partnering with a processor, whether that's in-kind partnership of just allowing access to the facility or processing the cattle and collecting the data, or whether it's more directly involved as part of the project and a funding partner. But as you can see there, some of the priority areas might be around that quality and yield targets, where that's impact along the whole supply chain and looking at where the market from a customer point of view is, and looking at that future markets as well as what can have an influence along the supply chain for those areas and where we can improve the productivity within that framework of those objectives. And so some of those practices that might be implemented on farm to focus on that would be improving things like your genetics, your nutrition, or in cases of like pre-slaughter management, so managing the animals leading into slaughter or the processing side. From a genetics point of view, it's getting that data flow back and forth so you can actually identify where there's an opportunity to focus the genetics towards current and future markets to ensure that what you're actually doing and the decisions we're making when it comes to our bulls and our heifers, that we actually do have a target that ensures we're meeting market specs in now and in the future. And so the way this works from an MLA adoption focus is that key long-term practice change has an ability to really grow and improve and make significant impact to producers over time. And so as part of that, we would be measuring right at the start, setting a baseline and a benchmark. So there needs to be a reasonable amount of benchmark and data collection involved in this. And then that would be then reviewed on a regular, semi-regular to a regular basis and collected continually through over that time frame. And the long term being quite a few years, so we're looking at it at least 4 years, but open to working with you and open to sort of how you might like to frame up the project. Another part of there is utilizing the behavioral insight. So working on that peer-to-peer side of things and helping producers support each other, working through what we can do to actually really instill an opportunity to make change and adopt the practices, and looking at, well, what are the things that are limiting adoption, and why are we not getting adoption of something that might actually make sense from theoretically, what's the drivers behind lack of adoption. And then a key part sort of adding to the peer-to-peer is that group-based coaching. So as we sort of saw from the little flow chart I had up before, there's going to be in small groups, and that small or large groups, and that enables, I guess, that peer-to-peer learning and the coaching within that group. And that could be ideally sort of regional based producers, so that everyone's sort of roughly along the same lines in terms of their production systems, but we're open to being flexible with what that can look like. And then not only from a practice change point of view and an on-farm physical change of what they do, but also that knowledge and skills development. How do you access the information at your disposal? Well, how can you use those tools? Maybe it's part of it is developing other staff on farm to help them better work with the animals, help them understand how do they manage the farm better, and then how does that work within the market framework as well. So just to sort of close it out there, we're open to all industry stakeholders on this one. The same as sort of when it fits into the value-based marketing side, we're looking for any ideas and concepts that you see where there might be gaps in producer adoption, and looking at how do we support that long-term practice change for producers. And so we're looking to have a expression of interest, not a full proposal, put together for us by the 10th of October, and we'll review those and come back throughout that period of October, November. And so the idea there is to put forward where you think there could be some opportunity around working directly with producers, ensuring that sort of ongoing practice change. There's clear measurement and collection of data that has then a great impact over that time. And you've got myself and Hillary available to reach out to. You'll see on the actually out on the tenders page, there's quite a number of tenders, but our contact details are there. Otherwise, you can reach out directly to the MLA group and be able to share that through. And just to touch on this, there's plenty of other expression of interest and tenders currently out there. So feel free to have a look at those and pass on to anyone that may be interested in being involved. So are there any questions in the chat? I'm just going to jump up and have a quick look.
That's great, Will. So I suppose if you restate what you said at the start in terms of the overarching aim, it's that real sort of long-term practice change program. So the 4+ years, peer-to-peer learning methods is definitely our preferred approach. And, you're focusing on supporting producers meet their breeding objectives, market specs, and, to really optimize their productivity and profitability. So, yeah, really encourage people to have a look at that expression of interest. And what was your date? I should know. The 10th of October, to hit that requirement. And as sitting on the screen there, obviously not to read, but just to direct you that, there's lots of current tenders beyond the 2 that you heard today. Some levy funded, some MLA donor company funded initiatives. So again, check out the chat, which we've got the links back to that. And we've also included the links there to a little bit of a description about the MLA donor company. If you're not familiar with how the co-funding matching program works here at MLA, there's some more information there. And we've also included the links to our 5-year strategic plan and our yearly annual investment plan, which selfishly I'll sort of put forward the case is ultimately we're here to service industry, but as an investor in RD&E, it's great to sort of see where the clear alignment to our strategy sits in any of your proposals that come forward. Look, we might leave it there. Said we'll certainly close out anyone that's reached out in the chat there, or send us through an email. Thank you again for your time, and really keen to see the expressions come in. And thanks to those that already have submitted. Have a great day. Thanks again.